Welcome to the Bible Forum. I'm Warren Sprouse. It is Sunday night, June the 9th. It is about 4 minutes after the hour. We're getting just a little bit of a late start here. Technical problems, usually from the guy behind the technical stuff. Anyway, we got a lot of stuff to talk about tonight on the Bible Forum. I hope that you are settled in. You can process all of this. We've got some folks in the chat room. You might want to sneak over there and see what they're up to. They're a friendly bunch, and they'll talk to you. I ran across an article this week, and I've kind of set this whole section up with a capstone title saying, "As the World Turns." We've got some pro-lifers accusing the New York Times of ignoring science by labeling an unborn baby's heartbeat as embryonic pulsing. Yeah, that's liberal talk for this ain't really a baby. Language that wasn't used in earlier stories, but appeared in the May 29th report on this particular issue. It may send a signal to the media, because this is the New York Times. Everybody follows them. May send a signal that says, we're going to change the terminology. This isn't not an unborn baby's heartbeat, but rather this is just embryonic pulsing. Doesn't mean there's any real life here. However, at the very moment of conception, that's the direction it's headed. But we dare not say that. We found this week that a full 50% of adults say that abortion is morally wrong. 50%. 42% say it's morally acceptable. This is a poll that was conducted the first 12 days of last month, the month of May. It's the highest percentage of Americans to date that have considered abortion wrong in the last 4, 5, 6 years. Back in 2012, 51% thought so, but from that point it eroded to a very smaller, a much smaller number. It is now on the rebound. You think that elections don't matter? That the president, whoever's in the White House, doesn't really impact the culture on significant ways? We watched this with George Bush. We watched this with Barack Obama. And we're watching it now with the Donald. Now, liberals and so-called conservatives, they're a little confused on this. They split. But it's going to continue this way as long as we have a conservative in the White House. 23% of conservatives, 73% of liberals believe abortion is morally acceptable. A strong ideological split remains across many of the issues, but none of them is as divisive as abortion. It is but the latest poll reflecting a strong pro-life sentiment among Americans. The Harvard CAPS Harris poll showed that 70% of Americans believe abortion should be legal only in the case of rape or incest, or only in the first trimester. 6% favored legal abortion up to and including the birth of the child. The Harvard-Harris survey included interviews with 1,295 registered voters at the end of May 29 and 30. Over in the Middle East, we now see Turkish leader, President, I think he's called Erdogan, embracing Vladimir Putin in Russia. Turkish military officers are in Russia as we speak being trained. Does any of that matter? Yeah, it marks a turning point in our relationship with Turkey. Turkey was, probably still is, a member of the European Union, but Turkish leaders have ancient stars in their eyes. They fancy themselves the descendants of the Ottomans, a people group that dominated the Middle East, the North African nations, and almost took over Europe a number of years ago. Turkey has recently began sending their military officers to Russia for training, and observers believe that this could be a turning point in Turkey's relationship not only with the United States, but also with other NATO members, as the Turkish security policy and military become more prone to Russian meddling. That's what the article said, at least influence. Senior fellow at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies by the name of Aykan Erdemir is the author of these thoughts. These are not thoughts coming from the West. These are thoughts coming from Turkey. Late last week, June 7th of 2019, it was reported that the Pentagon has been taking major steps towards suspending its F-35 fighter jet training program for Turkish pilots here in the United States. It happened because they learned that Turkey was looking to acquire the Russian S-400 missile defense system. Acting U.S. Defense Secretary Patrick Shanahan told his Turkish counterparts in a June 6 letter that the pilots must leave the United States by July 31st and that training for new students would be canceled. The Trump administration has already suspended delivery of all F-35 aircraft shipments to Turkey. The Jews are in the news back in Europe again. Jewish shop owners are being hounded, threatened, and run out of town. Their businesses are the targets of prolonged campaigns of intimidation, culminating in months of demonstrations at their doors with up to 1,000 angry protesters at a time shouting, or shooting rather, I should say, red paint bombs and mutilated dolls at the employees. Owners of these businesses threatened with death and real bombings, the threats extending to their families. All the while, police are standing by, refusing to step in, saying the protesters are behaving lawfully. In fact, a top politician supports and is listed as a patron of the organization behind the protests. Is this Germany in 1933? Or is this the United Kingdom in 2019? Actually, it's both. Germany's interior minister and Berlin mayor allowed the annual pro-Iranian, pro-Hezbollah Al-Quds, meaning Jerusalem Day, rally to take place in Berlin. The purpose of the rally is traditionally to call for the destruction of the Jewish state. The U.S. Embassy in Germany tweeted, quote, Germany's federal courts decided years ago that Hezbollah is a unified organization dedicated to the destruction of Israel. Unspoken, meaning, therefore, they are our friends. Ironically, just days after the rally, Germany's Angela Merkel said, quote, there is to this day not a single synagogue, not a single daycare center for Jewish children, not a single school for Jewish children that does not need to be guarded by German policemen. At the same time, Merkel and her interior minister blatantly refused to ban the internationally recognized terror group Hezbollah, dedicated to the destruction of Jews. They have refused even to entertain the question. Now, do you know why every Jewish establishment in Germany needs police protection? In Australia, a Muslim doctor is now considered, quote, an enemy by pro-Iranian and pro-Hezbollah activists in his community. You might ask the question, why? Well, it's because he has been working with a Jewish organization that helps sick Palestinian children obtain necessary and life-saving treatment in Israeli hospitals. Dr. Jamal Rifi is a prominent figure in Sydney's Shiite Muslim community from Lebanon. He's been recognized for his work in preventing the radicalization of young Muslims by ISIS. And yet now he is considered an enemy by pro-Iranian and pro-Hezbollah activists in his community. He and his family are receiving death threats. He's afraid to go back to Lebanon to visit his mother for fear of being arrested and prosecuted by Lebanon's military court. This is the irrational hatred Arabs and Muslims have for Israel. Now they'll tell you it's because Israel stole their land and won't give it back. However, history demonstrates something a little different. Every year, artifacts and structures are being uncovered in Israel and in Jerusalem, demonstrating an Israeli presence long before any Arabs came. In our effort to demonstrate tolerance, the word itself has become a double-edged sword. Tolerance for the Islamists has created a significant danger for Jews and the world. Radical Islamists are being given a pass because they are viewed as persecuted. They were driven from their land, restricted from an equal share of benefits. But without the Jews in the land, these people would still be sheep herders. Their anti-Semitism knows no bounds, and if anything, they represent a greater danger to Jews than the Germans ever did. Our exaggerated tolerance for Israel has, or for the Arabs, has served only to embolden them. And our exaggerated pity has allowed them to infiltrate Western societies. In America, we watch blatant displays of anti-Semitism from Congresswoman Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib. They have been handed a free pass by their own Democrat Party and by the mainstream media. If the Western world still has the will, they can call all of this out and they can stop it. But if not, hatred of Jews will grow greater and the violence will become unstoppable. Syria's civil war has become the excuse to attack Israel with military weapons. This war has brought the Soviet Union to the Mediterranean Sea. Turkey has become more emboldened against the Christian Kurds and less responsive to NATO. They're a member of NATO. And now Iran, ancient Persia, is using Iraq as a base of operation against Israel. News reports indicate that Iran is ramping up her efforts to make nuclear bombs, while the United States is seriously stifling her ability to trade with the world. Recently, the Israeli Air Force has done some serious damage to the Persian influence in Turkey and the region surrounding. They bombed them pretty much out of existence. We'll see how all this plays out over the next several months and years as biblical prophecy is being illustrated in the news every day.